Gary Dozark. Absent. Don Reinish.
Here.
Brad Carson.
Here.
Rich Rasmussen. Here. The purpose of this meeting is a continuous conditional use application under Article 5, Section 507, Item 1, Animal Feeding Operation. The application is by Foundation Farms RE LLC, Greg Cropa. Location, southwest 1/4, 23, 10567 Plummer Township, Grove County, South Dakota. It is for a swine production facility, 7,740 animals, computing into 2,427 animal units. Application was brought before Planning and Zoning, May 29th, 2018. At that time, a recommendation by Planning and Zoning was to grant the requested conditional use. The next item is the meeting procedure. Our zoning administrator has provided us with information regarding the application. The record keeping for today's meeting will be written and also recorded, both video and audio. This is an open public hearing. Everyone who wishes to speak will be allowed to do so. We did request that if you were preferring to speak, that you do sign so that we would have a list of who is going to be granted that. You will be given 5 minutes, so you will want to have your ducks in a row. Try to be factual, try not to repeat yourself, and try not to repeat somebody that has gone before you. All statements and questions are to be directed to the chairperson, which is me. And I guess the hearing. The Board of Adjustment reserves the right to question any speaker. So afterwards, we as a board, after you've spoken, we can question you. At that time, we will not take questions from the audience. We will just, it will be the Board of Adjustment questioning right at the time that the discussion was made. If you have a question, please make a note of it, because at the end of the presentations by those that are for it, those are against it, then we will have a short question and answer period where you will be able to question a speaker. You will direct that question to me. I will then convey it to the party that you're addressing. After that question and answer, then we will close the public part of the hearing, and then it will be for the Board of Adjustment to consider the application. Any petitions, written comments, maps, drawings, photos, if you are presenting them as an exhibit, should be given to the Board of Adjustment. We will enter them, and then they will be on record as far as for people to come and view following you. Okay, at this time, the hearing. First of all, we will hear from the applicant and their representatives. Secondly, we will hear from those who are in support. Third, we will hear from those that are opposed. And then we will have the question and answer. So at this time, we'll ask the representatives of Foundation Farms and Great Cropa if they would make their presentation regarding their application for this conditional use.
Mr. Chair, I'll start, and then I'll have our...
When you get up to speak, please state your name and where you're from.
Mr. Chair, I'm Barry Kirkhart from Pipestone, Minnesota. I will introduce yourselves to Pipestone, and then I'll ask Dan DeHaan, an engineer, to represent the project. I'm one of the owners of Pipestone Veterinary Clinic. We're a veterinary clinic located in Pipestone, Minnesota. We were established in 1942. What I'm going to talk to you about with our business is what we call the Pipestone system, and that began in 1989. Today, in the state of South Dakota, we manage 16 sow farms. When I say manage, we provide the employees to those farms, about 75,000 sows. Our business for you folks is we serve independent farmers. As you know, agriculture changes. We accept change. We encourage the farmers we work with to adopt this change. We work with pig farmers in this case, and in pig farming, the independent farmers can do very well managing their own operations and not feeding for an integrator. And an integrator would be somebody who's owned by a large company, probably publicly traded, owns a slaughterhouse and raises pigs and hires farmers to raise them for them. That's not what we do. We represent the farmers who want to own the pigs, take the profits to their barns or their families, their communities, and retain ownership. To do that, independent farmers can do it and be very competitive. There's one piece of that operation, though, they cannot do themselves, and that's farrow the pigs. They can't farrow the pigs themselves because it's too labor intense, too capital intense to do independently. So our job is to bring together the farmers that are willing to give up their independence, and that's a challenge because you guys are some of the most independent creatures we work with for sure. But the one piece we do very well, not only in the state of South Dakota, but in the country and the world, is coordinate and raise and build sow farms. You might ask, well, why they gotta be so big, Barry? The reason why they have to be so big is they have to generate a group of pigs that's large enough so a farmer can get one set of pigs, all the same age, and operate his farm on what we call all-in, all-out basis to control disease. As you guys know, ag's very competitive. To raise them the way we introduce to these producers, we believe there's a $10 or $15 advantage, and in the pig business today, there's only $10 a pig profit. So you can put that math together. They have to do it this way. So today we manage 72 sow farms, 250,000 sows in the United States. We have 450 farmers, independent people, just like the folks here for and against this project, that own that system. They own the system. 98% of it. We have small piece of ownership in certain spots where it doesn't make sense for them to do it, or where they've said, hey, Barry, we want you to have skin in the game too. We want to partner with you. Those farms today, 5 years ago, 2 or 3% of our employees were international. Today it's 30%. For some of the folks in this room, that's a fear factor point. I would tell you, the international people we have working for us are people that apply through a visa program. These are college-educated people from countries like Mexico, Canada, the Philippines, the Ukraine. I can tell you those employees are some of the best employees we have. Citizens in the community, they're impeccable. These people get one strike, they get sent home. You aren't going to find them hanging out in the bars. You're going to find them working, and they'll work until we send them home, because that's why they're here, to work and to learn American ag. And so today, 1/3 of our employees are those folks. Our turnover rate with them is 90% lower than our domestic people, and they're some of our best employees. And they'll be good citizens. I know there's concern about odor. I would be concerned too. Pigs smell, right? We all know that. Cows don't, pigs do, and cow guys know they do too. But we have a bad stigma for smell. But these farms, that's why we build them over a 10-foot pit to hold the nutrients, and that's what it is, it's nutrients. When you apply this stuff to your land, it will change the fertility of that land. Just ask some of the people who have done it. Those pits then reduce the odor, smelled into the local community. We don't have open lagoons, and so there's 2 smell points. When we apply manure, spring and fall, but those periods of application should be short. With technology today, using umbilical lines and incorporating the manure into the soil, the odor is minimal, but it will be a 3 to 5 day or some period of smell. There's no denying that. Livestock smells has forever. The second point of smell is if you're in high humidity and you have you're downstream from this farm and the wind is low, 3 to 5 miles an hour, you will smell this farm up to a mile away, maybe 1.2 miles away, but it dissipates. High wind, low odor, low humidity, low odor. And so the odor is minimal. Our closest neighbor on this side is 1.77 miles. That was strategic for us. We searched long, hard, all over to find sites that don't intrude on the neighbors. 1.77 miles for us is very attractive. It's hard to find places in South Dakota that have corn, have the infrastructure that you can build these on that are 1.77 miles away from people. I know that there's health concerns. I would just tell you, I've raised hogs since I was 8 years old, and I got pictures on that Owatonna skid loader to prove it. I've served as a veterinary consultant for more than 25 years. During that time, I've been in pig barns nearly every day of my life. I would tell you, for a 50-year-old guy, I'd challenge you, I'm not the best fit guy, but I don't go jogging. I would just tell you guys, it hasn't harmed my life. My lungs are good, I've got good cardiovascular, and I can state that working in these hog barns or being and living around them is not detrimental to me. My son, Gary Kropa's daughter, they're entering the pig business. They work in pig barns. It's good enough for us, and I don't believe, if I believe that was detrimental to their health, I wouldn't allow them to do that. You all have the economic value of this property. I don't want to recite that. You've got the numbers there. But what I would tell you this, this property is a 40-year structure. It's going to be here 365, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in your community, generating those incomes for 20 employees every day of the year for 40 years. What other business is coming doing that? And I would tell you, those employees are paid well. We give full health care. We give a 401k retirement plan. Our average in cost per employee is $60,000 a year. These are not low wage jobs. Again, I know concern about land value. You can go on the internet. You want to prove your land value is going to be decreased, just Google and search that. You want to prove your land value is going to be increased, search that. I would tell you, I think we'll have farmers today talk about their land value, their yields. And I would tell you this, with a high level of confidence, where I grew up, we had to raise livestock because we didn't have 10,000 acre parcels of land. And our land is the most fertile in the country, and not because it was the best from the start. Last thing.
1 minute.
Thank you. Last thing I'd like to say, I know there's concern about outsiders coming into the community, and there's concern about who's going to own this thing. I'm prepared to tell you, the owner of this facility is Pipestone Holdings Company. That's my company. You may say, well, Barry, you work for farmers. That's right. The purpose of this farm is to be a multiplier of genetics. And those folks that will own that are the farms that we have in this state and others that need these gilts to go to their farms to replace their animals. They will own the livestock along with the genetic company, DNA, the nation's second largest genetic company. And so you got 3 strongholders that are owners. Pipestone, my company. We got a lot at risk. We'll be good neighbors. It will look sharp. It will be well groomed. My shareholders that have farms in South Dakota, Minnesota, and Iowa, those are proud people. They won't allow us to not have a nice farm. DNA Genetics, when their brand's out in front of that farm, it's going to look darn good because it's their company. And so with that, I'd just say, Commission, I would ask you to consider what is a fantastic project to the community that will enhance the economic value and also bring jobs locally.
I'm Dan DeHaan with DeHaan Grabs and Associates.
5 minutes.
5 minutes? Gotta stand up here. We're based in Bismarck, North Dakota. I'm originally a Platte, South Dakota resident. I'm up in Aberdeen, South Dakota. Just Barry did a great job of explaining this site. I'll give you a little bit more information. This is the exhibit I was giving, which is our latest copy of our exhibit that will be going into South Dakota. The project is really based, there's 3 major barns on this site. We'll have one farrowing barn, approximately 370 feet by 185 feet, one gilt development barn, 190 feet by about 100 feet, and one gestation barn about 513 feet by 201 feet. The farrowing barn has slatted farrowing crates over recharge pits which drain into the gestation barn. As Barry said, they're 10-foot deep pits. They are designed to meet 270-day storage. They actually hold more, closer to a year's annual amount. Minimum requirement set by South Dakota DNR is 270 days. That's the way that the permit is written. The farrowing barn drains to the gestation. The GDU has its own 10-foot pit for containing the manure. All animal manure that's in the pits will be applied on land application areas that meet South Dakota DNR requirements that we have to basically apply to meet the nutrient uptake of the ground. It has to be tested annually prior to application. We have to test our pits annually before, or actually right before we apply. So we have to manage that very close to South Dakota DNR stringent requirements, and they actually manage our records annually and verify our application. We have approximately 200, we have more, it lists more land, there's 2,500 of usable land on the land that we've got currently under application site on grassland and cropland. And the separation distances have already been identified. We also meet all separation distances based on rural counties such as 660 feet from the right-of-way from manure storage. And in our application documents, it states that we meet the minimum requirement separations from rivers, streams, creeks, and also right-of-way. And I kind of keep it short, if that's primarily from an engineer standpoint, the way it's built. Just a couple other quick comments. Our concrete storage pits have to meet additional structural requirements. They all are sealed. They've all got water seals in all the pits. It's almost zero chance of them ever leaking, unless there was a major catastrophe. But so they meet all our requirements, all engineering codes for our conditions for this location. And that's majority of it. And I don't know where I need to add this in as an exhibit.
Right down here. Next would be Greg.
I think everybody in there maybe knows who I am, but I don't know everybody in here. But I just want everybody to know, you can say that I'm the only one benefiting from this, and you're wrong. I've contacted some of the local neighbors closest to this unit, if they were interested in the manure. And they were interested at the start, until some bullies got involved in the deal and no longer wanted it on their land. And the only other thing that I really got to say is, I have a daughter that's working in one of these units. And I think it's very sad. It's all right for her to work in one of them, but it's not all right for this unit community, for you to live next to. And I drove past a smell today coming here. The Kimball City Lagoon, are you gonna close that down? Because that was the worst smell I drove by. We have a lot of things in the community, and if you can't realize that agriculture is what keeps Main Streets going, the 20 jobs that this unit's going to employ is going to benefit the Kimball school system by almost $90,000 from state aid from these employees being there. That's tax dollars that we're not happy to be looking for, that's gonna be funded by this project from the employees being there. That's all I can say.
Next would be Dave Nebelsick, Mount Vernon, South Dakota.
I'm a neighbor to Jackrabbit. I live 1 mile away as the crow flies, and I don't raise any hogs. I'm not involved in that at all. But I do benefit from the nutrient management program. And first I'd like to talk about the odor. And being 1 mile away, very rarely do I know that facility is there. On days when it is calm and humid and the wind is directly from that facility, I will smell the odor of that facility. It's usually short-lived. It's not offensive. I've got a son that's just graduating from college, and he's brought kids out on a day when the wind and the odor and the humidity was just right, and there was a smell from that facility, and they were outside the whole time playing lawn games, and guys and girls from the city, and none of them ever complained. I think I noticed it more than they did. The second thing I'd like to talk about is what the manure has done for my ground. This last year, we were in a dry area over where I live, and I had a neighbor come to me that sold me some seed corn that I planted on some of the ground. And he was walking through my fields, and right across the road, he was walking through his field where he doesn't get that hog manure applied. And he just flat out asked me, he said, "Oh, what am I doing wrong?" And there was that much difference in the yield. And the combine at the end of the year verified that. And so just from the benefit of what the hog manure has done for my ground is significant. The third thing I'd like to talk about is this facility site is very well maintained. It's well kept, it's mowed, they take pride in the way that facility looks, and it will be a benefit, just a visual benefit of how facilities and hog facilities should look. There was 2 miles of township road. I've been on the township board, and when they built that facility, they also improved the 2 miles of road. There's more gravel on that township road than on any other township road in my township. They built it up, and they paid the expense to do that for the road. Land values, we just had 80 acres sell in the section that I live in. The individual sold it privately. He came to me and he had a price in mind of what he wanted to sell it for. And before I could get back to him, he had an individual come forward and say, "I'll give you what you asked for that land." And so I feel that it doesn't decrease, actually. I believe it's increased the value of the land that's in that manure management program, just because of what it does for crops. And I can attest that since, I wish I had manure available to all the ground I farm, because there's that much difference. I was never opposed to it. There's young people in our area that are able to come back to the farm, and the only way they can do that in today's egg economy is through livestock. And the only way they can access the hogs that they need is through farrowing facilities like Pipestone puts out.
15 seconds.
And I guess I've been very pleased with what I've seen in the time that they've been there.
Thank you. One question for you. You say you're 1 mile from Jackrabbit.
I am.
What is the direction?
I live north and east from Jackrabbit.
North and east?
Yep.
Across the highway?
I live actually on the west side of the Mount Vernon Oil.
On the west side of the mountain?
Yeah. And so it's 1 mile east and just a little bit to the north.
Okay. Next would be Nick Fitzgerald, West Branch, Iowa.
Yep, that's correct. Nick Fitzgerald, West Branch, Iowa. I am a pork producer from West Branch, and then also work with Pipestone as well. Shareholder actually in 2 farms in South Dakota with the Pipestone system. Livestock for us and our family business, being young and a farming family, has been really the only way that I've been able to, my brother and I, and wife and daughters and I have been able to kind of carve our niche in the family farming business to create room for us. And so we entered into the Pipestone system back in 2011. I can say that it's been the best thing our family has done as far as improving the competitiveness of our pork production system as we continue to grow. Today we feed about 50,000 pigs a year at home, and again, I also work with Pipestone as well. So the nutrient values have really afforded us some agronomic benefits on the row crop side of our business, and a unique competitive advantage relative to some of the primary row crop farmers in our part of the state in Iowa. And not to echo his comments there, but the nutrient values have been instrumental in us as we continue to grow our farming business with the family.
Thank you. Martin Butler, Alexandria, Minnesota.
Yes, I think I'll address the jobs that this is going to bring to your community. This is my 40th year raising pigs, and I started managing a 500 sow unit in 1978, and this is going to be over 10 times bigger, and still have 19 employees. I had 3 employees when I started. And the job quality and what it can bring to a family, living out in a rural community, being able to go to a job that pays very well. Let's remember, this is almost 2x the salary, the average salaries and benefits in this unit, is over 2x the average salary here in Rural County. So I'm passionately like doing what I'm doing. I do work for Pipestone. I'm a shareholder in a couple of the units like Nick here. And I raise pigs and I benefit from that. But also being able to go pick these sites. I was with Greg picking this site a couple years ago. It's isolation, near cropland, being able to utilize the nutrients is all very beneficial. And the setbacks to the neighbors is very good. And to be able to bring that kind of jobs to this community makes me feel good. And it's something you should consider. And more importantly, working with Pipestone, which is a world-class outfit. It's the 3rd company I've worked for, and I've worked for other big companies. It's a world-class outfit that gives a career path to these young people that start in these farms and work in these farms. And the career path is important when you start and being able to build a career and be able to do more and get more responsibility. And Pipestone trains people to do that very well. And so I just want to make sure everyone understands that the jobs here are going to be first class. And yes, there's going to be some other workers coming in, but the whole goal is to employ people all here. That's our goal. And when we have the jobs here, I'm sure the people will be taking them. So, thank you.
Brad Greenway, Mitchell, South Dakota.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Brad Greenway from Mitchell, South Dakota. I just want to touch a little bit. My wife Peggy's here, and 12 years ago, when we decided we were going to change the way we raise pigs, because it was pretty much like everybody, outdoors, and then we wanted to do something better. We built our first 2,400 head barn. At the same time, there was other young people in our area that wanted to expand their pig farm and were looking for a sow source. So at the same time, Pipestone built Blue Stem Family Farms, which is northeast of Mount Vernon, between Mitchell and Mount Vernon. And it's on my dad's ground. They were looking for a site, and we thought, you know what, let's test that and see if it works. There's 12 people within 2.5 miles of Blue Stem Family Farms. Peggy and I are one of them. We're 1.5 miles as the crow flies to the southeast. So prevailing winds, northwest winds. My dad is straight to the south, so it is in our backyard. And honestly, I'm very proud of it every day that we go by there. It was a source for pigs, not only for us, but right at that time, all the pigs raised in Davidson County, it's the source for them. 14 of us farmers own Blue Stem Farms. And so that's our pig source. So all the development, the expansion of pigs in Davidson County has come from Blue Stem. Now Jackrabbit's built, so there's been a little bit of trading and some shares, but predominantly everything in Davidson County is coming out of Blue Stem right now. I think the thing, just a couple things. Yes, it's in our backyard. You know, the smell. It's 300 feet from a pretty main road. And yes, you're gonna smell it there. You might smell it once in a mile away. You know, you start getting 3 and 4 and 5 miles. I think we've maybe smelled it one time, but maybe I'm used to it. People could say, you raised it, you're part of it, and you know, you're not a good thing. The other thing I think that is really neat is the site, how they're well kept. And my dad when it was built on there, he says, I'll be damned if I'm gonna have things looking like a mess. And it isn't. We're very proud of that. We go by there and it's mowed up and its weeds are sprayed. You'd be very proud of that in your area. And so that's one thing. The other thing is the roads. You know, the workers go by. I think there's 10 employees up there. We farm around it. I bale hay around it. Night before last, I was up there baling a couple nights ago. Never been in it for biosecurity. But the employees go by every morning. When I was baling that morning, there's 10 employees go up there. The roads are taken care of. They're going to take care of the roads because employees got to get in there, feed trucks got to get in there. It's probably the best road in our area because it has to be well maintained. The other thing I think that we're pretty proud of is the community stuff that it brings into the community. And Pipestone has implemented where they want to, we as owners put dollars into a fund, and Pipestone does also. And we get to choose every year, where do we want that to go into the community? So the paying back, the paying forward to the community, I think means a lot. You know what we knew? Pig farmers sometimes don't have a very good reputation. We understood here years ago that it's time to get out and talk about, open our doors, talk about what we do, let people see these facilities, do tours. I don't know how many tours we've been on in sow barns. I would encourage if they do it here, please go through it. You'd be amazed at how things have changed to help odor, to help sightliness, to help all that stuff. Things have changed. Technology has made that. One final comment, and I'll tell you what, I think not only has it helped our farm, but I think of Davidson County. That whole next generation, I've got an employee in the back of the room here, my son is starting to come back. It's allowed that next generation. And I don't care if it's a hog farm or a cattle feedlot or a dairy that wants to be built, it's livestock that's gonna bring that next generation back here. That's who's gonna be in your schools, and that's what's gonna help the tax base in the schools. I said on the township board, one of the township board members said, wow, we'd love to have another one sit in our yard. Because they got our finishing barns and they got our sow barn. That brings a bunch into a township where we got a $50,000 budget total. And I think about 5,000 of it, if is prorated for 5 years. The other township boards look at that and say, wow, that's a benefit. My point is they're good for the community. They'll help do things for community projects. It will be a nice, clean looking site. It'll be something we're proud of in our backyard. And I think that we'll kind of will be too. I would encourage you to pass this.
Peg Greenway, Mitchell, South Dakota.
I could go up there too, I guess, but I'll just stay here. But Brad touched on a lot of the things. I guess I'm just going to talk a little bit about the, how proud we are of it. Modern agriculture has changed so much, and all of us have the opportunity to learn about this. I spend a lot of time advocating for, I guess we're involved in the pig industry, so that's what I do, but modern ag in general. But talking about food production, that's what we're doing. We're really growing food. Whether it's beef, and whether it's pork, whether it's dairy, that's what we in rural South Dakota depend on. And I'm proud of the changes that we've made to improve animal health. And so these barns, there's a lot of misunderstanding about what happens inside of these barns and how it works. And we spent a lot of time doing video tours with people, having people come to our farm because we're proud of it. We're proud of how we're growing food now. And so You know, you might hear some things about that, and I'm here to tell you that the changes that we've made are good, positive changes, things that I am proud to share with my neighbors. So please keep that in mind when you make your decision. Thank you.
I got a Barry, Kirk, okay. Tyler Crow.
Well, I guess you'll probably know that I'm Greg's son, and I spent the majority of my college or after college career in agronomy, and I can speak all day about what the farmers in our areas around pig farms think of when they are the best farmers. They're growing the better crops, they're doing those things, but in most meetings when I go to agronomy things, the big talk is who's gonna do it? How are we gonna grow the food? How are we gonna do it? But you gotta keep Main Street alive, you gotta have the jobs, you gotta have feed store, you gotta have the grocery store, and that's what this is gonna provide. Over top of the agronomy benefits and whatever, it's gonna be able to keep central South Dakota alive. The younger generation is going to Sioux Falls or going to Rapid City. The houses in Kimball are getting wore down because no one's building new ones, there's no reason to. And for Kimball and Chamberlain and Puckwana and everybody else to start growing up where we've got a grocery store in 20 years. You know, I don't want to be like Trip someday where there's no grocery store. Or the feed mill closed down because, you know what, Goslin's are going to retire someday, it's going to happen. But maybe this feed mill is enough to keep that feed mill open. Maybe someone buys that, maybe Kimball becomes a better town because of it. And I guess the other point that I like to speak about is keeping the money in Brooke County. Every time we go to Wheat Growers and buy something, that money goes to Florida. It goes to Moline, Illinois when you go to John Deere. Every time we work so hard for that dollar leaves, goes somewhere else because it's business here, business there. Let's go, you know, a lot of our goods come from the coast. But you bring the business into a community, that money stays here, it circulates here, it continues to do good here. And that's
That is the end of those that are in favor, right?
Second, right? I was on the list.
What's your name?
Marty Frost, top of one of the list.
Oh. Okay. Barry spoke first, so I just took that he was the guy.
Sorry.
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. I should have knocked out and not spoken. My name's Marty Frost. I've been employed with Pipestone for over 20 years and touch a little bit on what Martin said. It does provide a nice career path. I started out as a breed lead for a brief time and then managed a site similar to this for about 11 to 12 years. And then after that I got a promotion and was a supervisor overseeing 5 or 6 farms just like the one that we're proposing today. And now I've taken another career path and moved into nutrient management, which I'll touch on in a little bit, but I'm proud to work for Pipestone. They provide good benefits, 401k, a decent wage. They care. I mean, that's one of our mottos is that we care. Another thing that I'm proud of is that the farm that I managed, I purchased a house in an acreage about a mile away from it as the crow flies. Actually put manure, my dad farms the land, he actually puts the manure from the sow farm that I lived by Prairie before on that land. It's less than 100 yards from my front steps. When they're applying it, might smell it if the wind happens to be right. I'll tell you what, 3 to 4 weeks after we put that manure on that site, I was laying out in that field in a goose hunting blind or a duck hunting blind, shooting waterfowl. Didn't bother. I had friends from the cities that came down, they were laying next to me in the blinds. It's a positive thing. My dad's been putting manure on his fields for
ever since Prairie View's been around, that's the first farm I managed, so. What do I do for Pipestone? I do some of this permitting stuff, and I also manage the nutrients. I talk to farmers that are interested in taking the manure. Work with Dave, work with Brad in the greenways. When do you guys want the manure? Do you want the manure this year? Where do you want it? I also work with the crop consultants who make those recommendations. They take the soil samples, get those results, take the manure samples, get those results, put them together with the crop rotation, and they say, this is how many gallons per acre you're gonna need to put on, and it's gonna meet the state requirements. I also work with the manure pumpers. I have probably 17 to 20 different manure pumpers that I use in the Midwest. Interview them, keep the good ones, get rid of the bad ones, because we have a reputation to keep. I also work with the farm managers and the farm staff to help control their water. Every week I monitor their water usage. They have a target. If they're over the target, they get a call, they get an email. Why are you over target? We need to be under that target to make, to stay within our bounds of the manure that's produced at these sow farms. I also work with the DENR, South Dakota DENR. Every year, every farm in South Dakota gets monitored or has a review every year of where did you put the manure, how many gallons did you put on, did you meet the state regs. They also drive around the site and look to make sure everything's like the engineer's design, make sure everything's upkept. Again, I'm proud to work for Pipestone, proud to be standing here today. I live in a community with quite a few hog farms, actually. I live just north of Pipestone in a small community, Ivanhoe, Minnesota. And there's other integrators that have farms there along with Pipestone. So thank you for your time.
Okay, now we will go to the next portion. Kurt? Davis House.
Good luck.
I got it. I got it. No, I don't.
Why don't you
I
give
need to
a
sit.
copy?
So Dave, is this all exhibit 2? Or do I have to mark?
Make it two.
Make them all, this is all one thing though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Commissioners, for taking the time to visit with us about this today. Again, my name's Kurt Davishausen. A lot of you know me, some of you don't, obviously. My family and I, we farm close to this facility. We also run a hunting business. We start in September, we run through the end of December, and we actually do some preserve hunting in the month of March. A lot of tourists, which are valuable to our state, they come in. One of the things that they always express is how they like the scenery, the undisturbed scenery. They also like the fresh air, the clean, fresh air. And let's face it, if you've ever traveled to any cities, you know that's getting to be a harder and harder commodity. I mean, it's a natural resource, and we don't want to hurt that. My existing business is going to be impacted by this. I grew up on a farm, dairy farm. We raised hogs. Unless they've really changed how hogs produce their manure, it smells. I mean, it's just a fact. And I'm gonna be dealing with it not only from the smell of the confinement every day, but I'm also gonna be dealing with the odors when they put the manure out on the ground. That's gonna last for weeks, because they're not gonna be able to put all this manure down in one day. It's not gonna happen. So throughout the days and weeks it's gonna take to put this manure out, that odor, as they're even saying, is gonna be there for days. So what's applicated today is gonna smell for days, what's applicated the next day is gonna smell for days. This is not a quick odor gone in a couple days situation. They're being asked to plant trees. I want to talk about that. Those trees are actually going to be baby trees. We've all planted trees in our shelter belts and everything. These are 1 foot tall trees. I've planted tens of thousands of them, okay? It takes a while. There's an old saying about a tree. The first year they sleep, the second year they creep, the third year they leaf. So 3 years before these things are even going to get going. This facility, now we're talking about trees, 1 foot trees, blocking the wind for the local neighbors from a hog confinement that's actually being built up on a hill in the same area where there's wind towers. Guys, we know they put wind towers where the wind blows, and it's not 5 to 10 mile an hour winds. So the winds are gonna push this odor around. When I attended the zoning meeting on this confinement proposal, the representatives from Pipestone Systems said that they would inject the manure. That's gonna be their way they say they're gonna do it. I have something I would like to show you, gentlemen. Here, this is another exhibit that I question about how much of this manure is going to be injected. This was what was pointed out. This is here. Yes? Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. There you go. All right. And then this is actually what is in their business proposal in the binder that we were able to finally see. Okay? So as you can see, it looks like manure is only actually required to be injected in ground that is tilled. You can see right there from the handout, from their book, that says any grass, alfalfa, no-till farmland or pasture can be surface applied without incorporation. That equates to a very large percentage of land with the manure is going to be placed on top. So for weeks, not only will the odor be tremendous, but you got air quality, health hazards, and potential runoff that's going to be increased by that. We've talked to families. I know you guys are here. Some of you have these hog facilities near you, but we've talked to other families. There's a yin and a yang to everything, a good and a bad, but we've talked to other families that their lives have been turned upside down by these. I don't need to expound on that a whole lot. We've heard things from the transports leaking manure on the roads, then driving through that, pulling in their parking garages. That's probably not a pleasant smell to wake up to in the morning with your vehicle with hog manure on it. This manure is going to have to be carried by transports and large equipment on the county and township roads. That's many trips, heavy equipment in the spring and the fall on roads that simply cannot handle this abuse. I know our township is in no position to handle the repair and the maintenance of these roads. In 2015, in our same area, we lost 3 miles of hard surface road due to, let's face it, our county's budget was tight. This is in that same area now that we're talking about. How about the 8 months or so it's going to take for construction? We're going to have liability to township, county on our vehicular accidents. They're saying they're going to use drag lines as much as possible. That's in question in Grant County. There's actually a pending lawsuit, from my understanding, about being able to use these drag lines that the county is actually being brought up in suit on this. We'll talk about more on that later. These hoses, that if they did use drag lines, if they rupture, disconnect, they say they've got a pressure gauge, they've got a shut off in the tractor. I farm. You guys, anybody that has a hose knows, and there's a lot of slopes, and a lot of these slopes are going to run down towards the creeks and the streams. If that ruptures, all the manure in that line is going to run out. There's no stopping it. It's gravity. Okay. guys, this is not a next Main Street business, it's not a medical facility. It's a hog confinement. We gotta call it what it is. It's gonna come with issues and some other problems that we're gonna have. The owners of this confinement, they've even admitted they're not local residents like we are. We wanna see our towns prosper, yes, we do. The thing is, we need to remember, Brule County is not a hog confinement, it's not a piece of equipment, it's not anything but people. Just like you and I, we all attend the same community functions. We pass each other on sidewalks, our children go to the same schools. We call Brule County our home, and actually, we are proud of our area that we live in. Okay, I'm out of time, I take it, so I'll step away. Thank you.
I was actually gonna give you about 2 more minutes if you wanted, because I gave Barry more than 5 minutes
Okay.
at the start of the other one, but everybody else is gonna have 5 minutes.
I think I'll just give my 2 minutes to somebody else.
No, we don't give them.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Jim Headley.
This is interesting. Greg's my neighbor. My son lived with Barry in college. Is that right, Barry? Todd Headley?
Todd. Yes, my roommate.
So whatever, but yeah. But I'm just here to speak about rules of Aurora County and zoning. So I'm not, just because I heard manure is supposed to come into Aurora County, is that correct? There's acres in Aurora County. So I just thought maybe rural county, maybe you know all the rules for Aurora County. But that's gonna take a conditional use permit or whatever for Aurora County. And I just, a little history of our zoning. 20 years ago, we voted because we had an issue with DeCoster from Iowa. Anybody heard about hogs? He was coming into our county, what, several thousand acres? He told our commissioners he's gonna take over. And a bad actor, anybody that's followed his records, from Maine all the way through to Iowa. So that's why we initiated petitions on setbacks to try to, for sure stop him, and there were a lot of other issues. That's been a while ago, but so we voted on 5 miles from town, 3 miles from residents, 3 miles from the public park. That passed in Aurora County by about 80%, give or take, support of the people. So I was on the zoning board at that time, so that was quite a message that the people sent to us about following rules. So anyway, they would need permits to come into Aurora County, you just can't do it. And we had 2 individuals that came in back at the time. They thought we could do anything we wanted. And it's a little different issue. They stockpiled manure in our county from CAFOs. I don't know how. One of them was a cattle feedlot, I guess. One of them was a chicken facility. Stockpiled it on fields. They weren't supposed to do that. We made them haul it back out. So twice we had to enforce that. But the thing about it is, it involves Aurora County, in this process. So that's all. I just wanted to speak with perspective of Aurora County, that there are rules over there too. Connected with this.
Thank you. Brian Havlick, Kimball, South Dakota.
I got time to hand this over.
is Brian Havlick. My wife and I raised 7 kids in about 3 miles from this facility. We have a hunting and a farming operation. This is my 21st season of doing this, and we employ about 20 people, part-time, full-time. People come from all over the world to hunt in my facility, and like Kurt said, they come to enjoy the fresh air and beauty that we do have. The map that I want to show first is the one that's got all the colors on it. That represents all the acres that are hunted commercially and or by family businesses in that area. And the legend below says the names and who they all are. The red square is the facility, and you can see how surrounded they are by the actual hunting that goes on, the tourism side of it, as Kurt said. This facility certainly could not replace the economic impact that the non-resident pheasant hunter has done to the state. It is, as we all know, it's what South Dakota is known for. It's not known for its hog facilities. And it's known for, they think of South Dakota, they think of hunting, they think of openness, and certainly the beauty that we do have. And we do feel like it's going to greatly impact it. There's estimated that there's about 1,250 non-resident hunters that hunt within those colored areas, between the lodges and the other people that have the businesses. And it is going to greatly affect that number. And it's estimated, in our opinion, that it's about $1.8 million worth of economic impact that those 1,200 people, 1,250 hunters do to the economy, local and state. We're not, if this were a golf resort we're talking about, the room couldn't be big enough. But it's a same thing. We're no different than a golf resort. People come thousands of miles, fly in, and they enjoy what we have. And we as a state, as a community, should really think long and hard about sticking up for them, frankly, because they're not here to represent themselves, but certainly we know the impact that the state non-resident hunter has done. So which leads me to my next point. The map there, the other map with the plain one, I want to give you proximity. I either farm or operate 1,400 acres right around the hog facility. My dad has 1,600 acres right around the hog facility. These acres will not be going in. And so if you focus on what we believe, after talking about Jim Headley's Aurora County stiff rules, what's circled there on the right in yellow is Aurora County acres. We have to assume that those will be denied the ability to spread manure on top or in the ground because of their strict rules. So let's focus on the yellow on the left, which is circled in red. That represents Todd Bozen, or Bozen Holding Company. He could not be here, his wife's having surgery, but he wanted me to represent him. Also, the affidavit that I handed, where was that affidavit at? This affidavit here, gentlemen, represents Todd Bozen saying that he does no longer want his acres in this manure management plan because he feel like he was misled by Marty Ross, the manure manager, into thinking that I had my acres in. So he said that he does not want them in, and they have, Foundation Farms has released those acres. So now focusing on the second page of that, please, if you would. If you look at that, that to us is the most predictable area for them to spread manure. This is what they've applied to the zoning committee for, and it's without the Bozen property and assuming that Aurora County's is out. So by focusing on that, I want you to look at the green. This is the one big difference, and I respect Brad and others that have talked about knifing it in and what it does to the ground. I can respect that, but the problem is that green acres are pasture. And you're going to hear from Jim Hoeing, Gary Broadcorp later, that is rough ground. It is not the ability to knife in. It is not at all. In fact, it's not even, to me, was ever part of the plan. It was part of, in my opinion, their idea was we're going to build it and they're going to come, and as a majority land operator right next to it, they're wrong. How much time?
About 30 seconds.
Okay, so real quick, on the top there, Section 1, that green, that is 117 acres of farm ground is all. That represents about a third, that whole area represents about a third of what their management plan is. Over 2.5 to 3 miles away, terrible roads, which you're gonna see from Gary Broadcorp. And the terrain also, we have drone pictures, the terrain is horrible. It was never part of the plan. I'll guarantee if you looked at that land, you would say there's no way. So basically, I guess in closing, before I lose my time, we feel like that if there's certain benefits to certain individuals about this operation, the negative effect is gonna outweigh the positive on this tremendously. Because of the small farmers, the small business owners in the area, the sportsmen. I mean, that's just a big part. So I appreciate your time, guys.
Thank you. James Hoeing, Kimball, South Dakota.
My name is Jim Hoying. Thank you for your time, commissioners. I am a farmer with a wife and 3 kids that will be living just over 2 miles to the south of the proposed pig factory. I am going to come at you with quite a few numbers, and I urge you to please listen to the numbers and let them sink in. I also want you to please do not continue to pass the buck on this. Do not rely on the next step to strike it down if you feel it doesn't meet the set criteria needed. I would like to say that we can rely on our state to do what's best for its citizens, but with the research I have done, especially with DENR, our state is way behind the times and guidelines needed for these CAFOs. Please listen to the citizens in our county you are representing. The handouts I gave you have compiled to help keep the numbers straight for you. Pipestone claims that they will provide enough manure for just 1,000 to 1,200 acres annually. I don't believe this is anywhere close to enough for the head of pigs they are asking to get permitted. In reality, they will need a minimum of 2,415 acres for 1 year. If Pipestone stays at their target 8,000 gallons of manure applied to just corn acres. However, the acres don't consist of just crops. They have pasture as well. I have visited with 4 different manure applicators from 2 different states that come into South Dakota to spread pig manure. They have all done this for over 20 years. They caution not to go over 4,000 gallons an acre on grass. Having said this, running the numbers that come straight from Pipestone, the pig factory will need 17.74 million pounds of worth of feed, not including their dicalcium phosphate, limestone, salt, and other vitamins and premixes, as well as 14.6 million gallons worth of water. Not hard to believe that with those numbers that this is going to produce actually 13.9 million gallons of waste in 1 year. That's enough sewage to fill over 21 Olympic-sized swimming pools. They have 1,189 acres of grass to spread on, 670 acres of crop in Brule County signed up. As Jim Headley said, I would add in the Aurora acres, but however, from our research, by zoning ordinances, they are not able to cross county lines with the manure. So based on Brule County acres then, the grass alone will take 4.7 million gallons of manure, based on the recommendations for the applications. That leaves 9.2 million left for crop ground. So that's 13,735 gallons of pig manure to go on the listed crop acres, year after year. If we were to follow their application target of 7,000 gallons of manure per acre, that would be like spreading 522 pounds of urea, 308 pounds of MAP, 233 pounds of potash per acre. For the following figures, I used what the applicators that I visited with that do this for a living claim that would be in the manure. If I was to use Iowa State's number, the other handout I gave you, that you have here, that they have compiled, but you probably won't believe me in how much higher the numbers would be. Most of us around here hardly ever have to spread potash on our fields, but when we do, it's only 50 pounds. and that will last for 4 years. Not to mention, for us personally, that's over double the amount of nitrogen we need. So how do you think that putting on 2 to 4 times the amount a normal farmer does year after year is not going to pollute or contaminate our water supplies and the soil it's going on? Farmers, if you claim the title, you know how important being good stewards of the land is. This has nothing sustainable about it. And by the way, did we not forget they have to put on 13,735 gallons on their crop acres to empty their pits. To make matters worse, I have visited with Jason at the DENR. He has told me they have recently stated they'd like to have access to 5 years worth of acres to apply the manure on. In case of a drought or a wet spring, to help prevent the phosphorus and nitrogen buildup. So if you were to lower the gallon per acre to where we would normally apply our fertilizer for this area, not Minnesota or Iowa, we would be down around 5,000 gallons per acre. Even at this number, it would need to be corn on corn, and after 2 years, the phosphorus levels could potentially be too high for additional manure, which would make the acres jump all the way up to 3,060 acres for 1 year. Remember, DNR would like to have 5 years worth of acres. So let's take another angle on this. If you go off their 8,000 gallons per acre of manure, that's supposed value of the manure, that would be $193.72 an acre. I don't know about you, but I only have to put on $65.75 worth of fertilizer on my corn ground. That equates out to being just shy of 3 times higher than the normal fertilizer, not including the application cost of the manure. Pipestone wants the farmers, if any would sign up, to pay 60% of the value of the manure. At 60%, you are still looking at $116 an acre, which is still almost double what we normally would pay. They gave all the application numbers on 170 bushel corn, but did not give any recommendations on what will be applied anything else, like grass, alfalfa, or soybeans. So how many more acres will that take? If they have to spread less gallons per acre, most acres in Iowa are spread most acres in Iowa are spread on every 2 years. The first year being corn and the second year being soybeans. So one application of manure is enough for both crops. Pipestone claims that approximately $170,000 in manure value is created annually. But what they don't tell you is that it will take money away from a business that's already established and possibly cause them to have to fire employees. Also, Pipestone claims that all manure will be incorporated into the ground. No, I'll stop. Thank you, Commissioners.
My name's Wendy Boyne. I'm gonna pick up where my husband left off. Pipestone claims that all the manure is gonna be incorporated into this ground. The applicators that we visited with said there's no way to spread manure and incorporate it in our kind of pasture with all the rocks we have. It will simply break the equipment. The only way to do pasture or alfalfa is to use a tool called an airway. It is a toolbar with spikes that will poke holes into the ground and then apply manure over top in hopes that it falls or runs into the holes and not down the hillside and into the creeks. Also, none of the applicators said that they can go below 6,000 gallons of manure per acre on a dragline system and be consistent with the application. Please remember though, they also recommended not to go over 4,000 gallons per acre for fear of injuring the grass. So with all that being said, there is no way that they can use a dragline to spread all their manure. This means they will have to hire trucks or tanks to come in and haul this manure out. And if that is the case, the largest tanks that can be pulled behind a tractor is 8,500 gallons. The applicators also said if the fields were small, that they would not use the dragline either for the manure, because it would take too much time and money to set up to each field. So again, would use the tanks to haul manure. This means there will be at a minimum of 980 loads that will travel down our gravel roads at a weight of the manure alone being 71,000 pounds. That is not including the equipment. Please remember, we are talking as if they have enough acres and none of the new acres that they may be getting, if anyone would sign up. In research done by the University of Minnesota, they found that manure that laid on top of the ground without incorporation for just 4 days lost 50% of the manure value. Those of us that actually live here and farm here know it's not for the faint of heart. The stretches we can go without a sizable amount of moisture can be very scary. So the fertilizer is lost into the atmosphere as gases. Gases like nitrous oxide. We were talking 4.7 million gallons in 1 year this operation needs to put onto grass, not including any no-till acres that could be spread on top as well. We want to take a minute to talk about the pit as well. All the gases that are produced from the decaying sewage are either lighter than air and come up and have to be ventilated out of the building, or they are heavier than air and will hover 2 to 3 foot above the manure. Gases like hydrogen sulfide, carbon dioxide, and methane gas. So with that being said, as stated at the zoning meeting with what we were able to see, they said that the pit is only 8.8 foot deep, which is what they want. That means the pit only has to be just over half full before it will start to push those harmful gases out the exhaust fans and into the air for everyone to be irritated by. From our figuring, that means they only have roughly 160 days before the pits start to push the gas above the floor level. They would have to relieve the pits several times throughout the year, not just the fall. Minnesota and Iowa have learned the pit should be able to hold 13 months worth of manure, not just 270 days. This would make the pits be 12 to 13 foot deep instead of the 8.8 foot deep recommended. This would help with the smell and for pupping reasons as well. We have compiled all this data to the best of our abilities. The bottom line, they do not have the acres required to take care of the manure this facility is going to produce, period. Also, the manure numbers, application methods, and the timing of the manure application, we feel has been very misleading. Again, we want to thank you for your time today, gentlemen, and we ask that you please vote no on this proposed pig factory.
Do you want to give that as an exhibit so that could be reviewed?
Well, the exhibit that my husband gave you with this one, that one, that basically is a skinny, so that's the easiest way to look at it and see what we've come up with.
You can go make copies and I'll give you a copy.
Yeah.
Can they go make a copy and?
That work?
Yeah, that'll be
Okay.
fine.
All right.
Next, we have Gary Broadcourt, Kimball, South Dakota.
Hello, I'm Gary Broadcourt, Supervisor of Plummer Township. I wish to thank you for letting me address this meeting. On June 8th, Ed Hammock and I drove to Mount Vernon and looked at the neighborhood around Jackrabbit Farms, a 5,000 plus head hog facility constructed by Pipestone. The trees planted there are thin and quite short. The buildings appear to be in good shape, as they should. They are still fairly new. I don't know much about compost systems, but it didn't appear to be adequate for a hog unit of that size. I wish I would have taken my binoculars. We also visited with some of the family farmers in the area about the land purchase, an interesting story in itself, the construction process, the road haul agreements, and the operations up to present day. They talked of very dusty roads that weren't taken care of under road haul agreements, dangerous traffic, poor driving habits throughout construction, and up to the present time. They talked of how foul the air can be, especially in the mornings and evenings. Not a good way to start or end your day. There have been manure hoses over their approaches, preventing them from entering their fields, and manure applied to frozen ground and directly into snow cover. We asked if they thought Jackrabbit Farms brought economic gain to the neighborhood, and the reply was absolutely not. In fact, they said 2 families have moved out of the neighborhood. Once you have a confined animal feeding operation in your neighborhood, the chance of another type of economic development in that area is probably non-existent. Also, the existing development suffers. The Current families around Jackrabbit Farm will probably stay and bear the main consequences. The children will not want to try and carry on another generation of the family farm, as Jackrabbit Farms has become a very undesirable neighbor. We, the residents of Plummer Township, have unanimously signed a petition against a large-scale operation in our township. We also have letters from absent landowners who fear lost property values of their land. Neighboring townships have also signed and are opposed to the hog farm. There are signatures from people in counties with close proximity that oppose the hog farm, such as Aurora, Gerald, Buffalo, Lyman, Charles, and Nix. We feel the site selection by Pipestone and the offering by Grey Cove are very fully planned at best. The Brule County Rural Site Analysis Study prepared in 2013 sets criteria for what makes a suitable site for confined animal feeding operation. Plummer Township had no selected sites. The site location is almost 6 miles from a hard surface road. The last 3 miles to the site is a very narrow road with a sharp, dangerous hill, 367th Avenue to be correct. The construction traffic would be very dangerous, especially when the concrete is being poured. Even if bashed on site, the materials would be very demanding on the poor infrastructure of that road. Feed trucks would burden the road with demanding upkeep, which will actually be a negative to Brule County economic development, as the feed will be coming from out of town. I have waited myself for up to 3 days before having a snow plowed on the road. That will not fit the feed delivery plan that was proposed. Local traffic will be affected greatly with the current infrastructure of the road. The site chosen for this facility lies within Smith Creek Valley. The manure field sites shown all lie within the watershed of Smith Creek. In Section 5 of the Brule County Comprehensive Plan, it points out 4 areas with high erosion potential: the Deja Hills, Missouri Bluffs, American Creek Valley, and Smith Creek Valley. It further states that the 2 valleys should be protected from development because they are subject to flooding and severe erosion. As Smith Creek is a direct source of fresh surface water to Lake Francis Cays, and all the manure distributions fall in the Smith Creek watershed, this is environmentally unsafe to Smith Creek, Lake Francis Cays, the Missouri River, and also the AB water system. The sites of the cities of Cable, Bucklawn, Kimball, White Lake, Plankton, Stickney, Gan Valley, all 1,000+ family farms and all customers of rural water. It is a threat to the tourism associated with Lake Francis Cays, especially fishing, boating, swimming, and all other activities enjoyed by having fresh, clean surface water. Injecting manure with shanks in the sand and gravel-based soil of Smith Creek Valley would greatly disturb the conservation of an important natural area of Brule County. Leaching also occurs easily in soils of this type, sandy and gravelly, to be specific. They say a no vote is a hard vote and a yes vote is always easier. But please consider a no vote, because it's actually a yes vote for many reasons. A no vote is a yes vote for local residents who have enjoyed the area for a long time. A no vote is a yes vote for Smith Creek, Lake Francis Cays, AB rural water, the Missouri River, tourism, and fresh clean water for all. A no vote is also a yes vote for you, the leaders of Brule County, as you gain the respect from the residents of Brule County by saving the incompatible land of Smith Creek Valley from development and destruction by a large-scale confined animal feeding operation. You got no time left?
No?
No. Do you want to leave a copy of that for us to review also?
Certainly.
Did you bring that?
Thank you for letting me address it.
Thank you. Vicki Hoeing.
So what do I pay? So I wait till those come in to mark them, or is that part of their other exhibit?
This, I just want to make copies.
You got it now?
Right, so that's
There's gonna
part
be
of
one.
his
Yeah, mark
exhibit.
that, and then mark the next one.
Okay, my name is Vicki Hoeing. I'm an owner and operator of Century Farm in Brule County. Thank you, commissioners, again for your time. I hate to read this, but it's just easier so I don't miss anything. So I'm here to voice my concerns about the proposed CAFO. My first concern is the roads in our area. The extra truck traffic and employee traffic will increase the dust and also the upkeep on the roads. And I know the county budget is already stretched thin just to keep up what we have for roads. 3 years ago, the county tore up our 3 miles of blacktop road, and now you ask that we put all the extra trucks, traffic, and on the gravel road and what's left of the blacktop. The property taxes from this cable will not be enough to cover what is needed for new roads, gravel, snow removal, dust control by residences, and general wear and tear. And who will enforce the haul road agreements? Those agreements are generally only for the construction phase, not after the CAFO is complete. We've learned this from the wind tower project. Another concern is after reading the proposal for the CAFO, which we were not allowed to look at the zoning board hearing, there are many small issues with the proposal. One major issue is the permit is for 7,724 pigs. But in section 2B, it states the facility will be in 8,548 pigs. So that's not correct. The driving directions say you go north out of Kimball on Highway 16. The last I traveled Highway 16, it goes east and west. This is another time the engineers were incorrect about the small details, so they probably are not always correct on the large details. It also states the rural water is a supplier, but the local rural water has told us they cannot supply the water. They are currently not allowing any other taps on our line in that direction of Plummer Township. Are all of these things what the engineers just kind of rubber stamped and made it the same as the rest of their CAFOs? Rural County is not anywhere near the same as Minnesota and Iowa when it comes to soil or moisture. Even the building plans have been made the same as the ones already built by Pipestone. After searching the web, I found many complaints about the upkeep at the facilities, and also the employee turnover is around 9 months or less. This doesn't sound like economic development to me. It also states the unemployment rate for rural county is 3.4%, so I'm not sure where the employees will come. If they can't find local employees, they will bring in immigrant workers and families. Who has to pay for the extra expenses for their schooling? We do, and that's all of rural county. I'm sure they won't be building new houses to help with any new county taxes. Another concern is the overuse of antibiotics, and with that, the drug-resistant bacteria that are transmitted with the spreading of hog manure. The MRSA virus is frequently found in the vicinity of hog confinements, and that's part of what your handout was. My husband is on lifelong anti-rejection drugs for his kidney transplant. The transplant doctors have told him to stay as far away from the hog manure as possible. So what does that leave us to do if the hog manure is spread next to our land? Not much, but takes away our rights to enjoy our farm, our land, and that's been in our family for over 100 years. It seems to me that if you voted against a new campground because of dust, people, and noise, that this CAFO would be worse for the county. I just want the Board of Adjustment to know that you can say no to this CAFO. I feel if this CAFO is approved, the rural county will be overrun with large hog confinements, and the next one may be in your backyard. Thank you for your time.
Ed Havlick, Kimball, South Dakota.
I'm Ed Havlick, I live right next to the proposed, I don't live next to that land, most of my land is next to this proposed site. I appreciate the time that you guys have, I know this is gonna get to be long and boring, but this is our life. We live with this the rest of our life. Just another day in business for Pipestone. These gentlemen are experts in their field. They didn't get where they are by not being good salesmen. Okay, factory farming, which Pipestone would or should be classified as gigantic, nearly 250,000 sows. How many sows is enough? 500,000, a million? And what's to say that they won't sell out to China or somebody else, just like Smithfield has done? We feel that the very few will benefit locally. What about profits? We know no local stockholders in this area. Much of the profits go to shareholders, which many, if not most, are from out of state. In our opinion, $25,000 in taxes may not even cover the added expense for roads and schools. Nearly $500,000 in other taxes go to the state. The workers, many of whom may be from foreign countries,
are not here to build homes and farms. They're here to make money. And the more likely send most of it home. They can learn all they can, and then they go home and apply it in their homeland. Basically transient. Every person that we have talked to that lives anywhere near one of these units basically loathe their Pipestone neighbors. They hate the odor, they hate the traffic, they hate the unkept promises, the devaluation of their homes and property. Depending on the wind and humidity, they can't open their windows of their homes or vehicles. Some say they physically get sick from the odor. I raised hogs for the better part of my life. I would like to know how your hog manure doesn't stink and mine did. We tried every avenue to suppress odor. It doesn't work. So I have friends in Minnesota and Iowa who can tell you the odor is almost present all the time if the weather is right. And the distance can be up to 6 miles. A mile and a half, or 2 miles is ridiculous. Like I said, this is just another day in business for Pipestone. The hog farm south of Mount Vernon has told us they've had blowout with manure shooting 40, 50 feet in the air. The neighbor lady wants to take pictures and was accused of harassment. The neighbors have been accused of cutting and shooting holes in their pipe. Hog manure is very high in phosphate, salts, ammonium, hydrogen sulfide. Eventually this will take its toll on the land, water, people, and air. The people that have lived and worked the land for their entire lives, some on 50 to 100-year farms, do not want to live with the smell and the traffic. 400 to 425 trucks per year, not counting incidental traffic. Please consider the people that are affected by this hog operation, including you and your families. Once you approve one of these hog farms, it opens a Pandora's box. How can you not approve the next 1, 10, or 20? Please stand with us so that Brule County doesn't turn into another Sioux County, Iowa, where it's almost impossible to look in any direction and not see hog houses, or drive anywhere and not smell hog manure. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Lois Sinke.
I am Lois Sinke. We were married in 1948 and moved on this place fall of 48. I live 1.5 miles south of where this operation will be. My land borders Greg Crocus plowed field 1/2 mile north of me, where the manure will be applied. I have lots of family who enjoy hunting pheasants, deer, and most of all, the clean, fresh air we have now. My understanding is the baby pigs will go to Minnesota, the veterinary supplies will come from Pipestone, Minnesota, and who knows where the employees will come from. We quit raising hogs in 1964. We lost 50 to 75 hogs with cholera, a serious disease. I will keep my doors locked most of the time if this facility is okay. Thank you, sirs.
Leanne Havlick, Kimball, South Dakota.
Hi, I'm Leanne Havlick. I want to thank you for letting me talk to you about something I feel is very important to our family and our neighbors. Our land borders this proposed site right down to the wire of the fence next to it. From there on down, we have a farm site within a mile. It's a very peaceful, quiet, no traffic hardly at all. A place where anybody would want to live. We bought this acreage for the intention for our children and grandchildren to live. But once our children, if this proposed site goes through, they will not want to come and live there. The families that surround this site want their children to stay and grow up in this area. And they'll want to be farmers. They want to hunt. They want to ride horses, take walks, whatever. But if this goes through, their life will have, they'll have to change to a degree of not being able to go out and do at any time. They'd have to schedule around whatever manure, whatever is in the air. We are not opposed to the expansion of agriculture. We spent our whole lives in agriculture. We have children and grandchildren that are and want to be part of the agricultural business. But what we don't want, and our opposition is, the huge volume of hogs placed in the middle of our family operations. We are all family farms. Some of you are too on the board, and some maybe your family have been farmers. We don't need corporate hog operation in our area. Our neighbors, us, all of Brew County, won't be the same if you approve of this. I also have a letter that was given me today from Peggy Young that's representing her family that is involved in this, is close to this proposed site. I'd like to read it. I have resided in Iowa for several years. Iowa is known for its high concentration of hog confinement operations. The smell from these operations is pervasive throughout the north central Iowa. Driving south on I-35 from Minnesota, there is no question as to when you cross the state line. I enjoy driving with windows open, but in Iowa it is impossible with a strong stench of pig manure. If you ever pass a semi-load of pigs on the highway, you'll experience this in a small way. Now imagine driving with this odor for miles, and none of these confinements are within close proximity of the interstate. The stench is disparate in distance. Land for miles around a confinement is affected by the intense odor generated by the confinement waste. Residential property values are significantly affected. Why would anyone choose to live where you were a prisoner in a sealed house? No open windows, no morning coffee on the porch, no backyard barbecues because of the odor or smell so bad. And for those who believe the propaganda that there is all new jobs, please reconsider. The labor force for these farms will be imported, if you know what I mean, and that will impact the entire community with the increase of non-English speaking families. Schools especially will be affected by our taxes.
I think you have a copy of that.
Good.
Everybody should have a copy of that.
We do have one.
Okay, like you're supposed to.
Well, give it to us.
Yeah, we don't need it.
We don't incriminate ourselves. Rebecca, Kirk?
Are there any other local people who would like to speak first? I'd like to skip if there are.
There are two left. You are one of them, and the
Okay.
other is from Sioux Falls.
Great, all right, thank you. Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Rebecca Turk, and I work for Dakota Rural Action. We are an over 30-year-old family agriculture and conservation group in the state. We have over 800 members, mostly farmers, ranchers, and rural people. And we're here today to ask you to deny this permit. So one of the most important pieces of work that we do as an organization is to educate citizens on their county process, how things work on a county level. But the other thing that we do, and we've been doing a lot more lately, is helping to educate county elected and appointed officials on their authority and responsibility. Now, that's not to say that you folks don't know your own business. It's to say that in this state, there has been a lack of tools and training given to county officials on, specifically on considering permits for industrial development in rural areas, and that's of course what you're looking at here. So we've seen this in the last few years, and we've seen county officials basically being led to believe that if an application is complete, you gotta say yes. And in fact, that is not the case, and the courts in South Dakota have consistently and recently upheld counties' broad authority to deny conditional use permits, whether or not the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. And there will be an attorney who will talk about that a little bit more. What I wanted to say specifically in terms of your ability to deny a permit is that that authority resides specifically in your zoning ordinance. And I wanted to actually read your zoning ordinance, so if I can find a little bit of it here, because I know it's in here somewhere. So this is from the Brule County website. It's from your zoning manual, which was amended last year, 2017. And that gives the definition of conditional use. And it says that a conditional use is a use that would not be appropriate generally or without restriction throughout the zoning district, but which, if controlled as to the number, area, location, or relation to the neighborhood, would promote the public health, safety, welfare, morals, order, convenience, appearance, prosperity, or general welfare. Such uses may be permitted in such zoning district as conditional uses, if specific provision for such conditional use is made in this ordinance. And so of course in your ordinance it says that you can have a confined animal feeding operation, but it is a conditional use. It is not a permitted use in an ag district, it's a conditional use, and your authority and your responsibility says that if you say yes, it is because you believe that the project will promote, this is the wording in your ordinance, the public health, safety, welfare, morals, order, convenience, appearance, prosperity, or general welfare. I think that from the testimony that you've heard of actual Brule County residents and folks in Plummer Township, you can see that those folks really don't believe that that is the case. So I've been to Plummer Township. It is incredibly beautiful. I was up there just after a rain, and it smelled amazing, like grass and cottonwood trees, meadowlarks, red-winged blackbirds. It was beautiful. And the long-term residents who are there are engaging in agriculture and tourism enterprises. They've clearly indicated the ways that this industrial hog facility would undermine and not promote the public order, appearance, prosperity, general welfare of the neighborhood. These facilities do create serious problems with odor, illness, and a diminished quality of life. A quick internet search of Jackrabbit Farms, which is a Pipestone Systems facility in Davison County, reveals that neighbors have been fighting for years to compel the operators to install better biofilters to reduce the odor. Folks there are literally living, not having opened their windows in 5 years. And the response to that complaint is that it's cost prohibitive to put those biofilters in. Imagine not being able to open your windows for 5 years, becoming physically ill from just going out and doing your chores. What do I have left for time?
1 minute.
1 minute, okay, I will do it. So it is a fact of life for people who live within a couple, 3 miles or more of these facilities. And as far as the economic development potential, I just want to say that some of our members who are residents in Grant County report that despite promises of work for the contractors and electricians, local people, Pipestone brought in their own people to do the construction. They truck in all their feed from out of state. And Grant County is currently facing a lawsuit over Pipestone Systems trespass of their manure pipes across private property. So I just want you to take that all into account and really recognize that you have the authority, and I would argue that you also have the responsibility to the residents of your community, and would urge you to vote no. Thank you.
Reese Coleman, Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Good morning, or maybe good afternoon. Good morning, Commissioners, and I appreciate you taking the time to allow me to speak. My name is Reese Allman. I'm an attorney with the Davenport Evans Law Firm in Sioux Falls, speaking on behalf of a local resident here in Brule County. They asked me to come chat here, and I don't have the hubris to talk to you guys about Brule County. You heard it from the citizens that live here. So what I want to talk to you about is what I'm qualified to talk about. That's the law. And I want to pick up where Rebecca Turk just left off about the lawsuit that has been filed in Grant County because of the pipestone system operation that took place there. And a little background behind that. Pipestone system applied for a conditional use permit in Grant County, received it. They then began hauling manure through pipes across the ditches and private property. Here in South Dakota, the law says that the property owner owns the entire ditch, owns actually the entire section up to the middle of the road. And there are what's called a right-of-way that goes 33 feet from each section, or from each direction to the middle of the road. That's called the right-of-way, so that extends into the ditch. And what our Constitution, what our Supreme Court has said, namely in Darnell v. State, I have a citation if your attorney would like it. And what our state statute has said is that people are allowed to travel in the right-of-ways, but they're not allowed to do private activities such as haul manure through pipelines through the right-of-ways, unless our legislature has specifically allowed them to. And there's no statute anywhere in our code that has allowed a private animal feeding operation the right to haul manure through a right-of-way. It has allowed electricity, telephones, which is the statute I gave you there. That's what it looks like when our legislature has specifically authorized someone to use the right-of-way for their private purposes. There's no similar law, statute, rule, Supreme Court case that has allowed a confinement to use the right-of-way to transport manure. In fact, the legislature just took this issue up earlier this year, and they contemplating giving counties the authority to do that. That was House Bill 1184. That bill failed in the Senate. So if the legislature contemplated giving the county the authority to allow that to take place and ultimately decided not to, the conclusion to draw is that there is no authority to allow that to happen. In fact, SDCL 313213 explicitly says that a private company cannot use right-of-ways to discharge commodities. Well, manure is a commodity, it's fertilizer. They're using right-of-ways to discharge commodities. That's prohibited by our law. So let's set all of that aside and let's just assume there is some statute out there, which there's not, but assume there is some authority to allow let's assume that the county authorizes this applicant to use these right-of-ways. So essentially taking the private property of one landowner and giving it to another private entity to allow them to transport manure. That's what we call a taking. Anytime a public entity takes private property, that private landowner is entitled to just compensation. That's what our South Dakota Constitution says. That's what the United States Constitution says. So if the county's going to allow these pipelines to go on private property, the question I pose, is it prepared to pay just compensation to those private landowners who are not okay with that? And a vote yes would suggest that the county is okay to pay that just compensation. If it's not okay to pay that just compensation, then I would strongly encourage you to vote no. And in fact, there are several reasons to vote no. You've heard them from several Brule County residents. You've heard it from Rebecca. For you to vote yes on this is the Brule County ordinances. For you to vote yes, they have to comply with every single provision in here. Every single one they have to comply with and meet. That's for a yes vote. If they fail to meet any one of those, the vote should be no. And you've heard from several people that they failed to do that. Section 1705, subpart 6, a satisfactory provision has been made regarding economic, environmental, and odor effects on adjoining property. You've heard from the commercial hunting operations that use this area. You've heard from the farmers that use this area and the families that use this area and how it's not going to work and it's going to have the detrimental effects on them. 1705 subpart 6 talks about the lack of utilities. Rural water, I don't believe has signed up or will sign up according to the information that's been passed on to me. It also references the general compatibility with surrounding properties. I understand you guys have a township in front of you that was given as an exhibit this morning from Plummer Township, which is where this operation is set to be sited at. The township board has actually created a resolution to come out opposed to this. I've never seen that. I've represented a lot of landowners around it. I've never actually seen a township board come out and say, whoa, we don't want this project in our township. That's unique to this operation. Look at section 521 and the performance standards, and there's they failed to meet the performance standards in those ordinances. And finally, kind of what Rebecca was talking about, you can vote no because you feel this conditional use is not in harmony with the purpose and intent of the ordinances and surrounding land uses. That's section 1705. That type of discretion that Rebecca was just talking about, our Supreme Court has said basically a no vote is bulletproof on appeal. Bulletproof. There's no way to win on appeal with a no vote because you guys have such large discretion. A yes vote, however, as I work on pretty routinely, there are several ways to appeal a yes vote. Like I said, they have to comply with every single provision in here. So a yes vote, me and my firm go through the ordinances of whatever county we're working in, review them to see if they fail to comply with any one. And there's also, a yes vote also requires compliance with not only the applicant to comply with the ordinances, but the process to comply with the ordinances. I understood the Planning and Zoning Board provided a recommendation. I wonder, was there a written recommendation as your ordinances require? If not, then, well, we're going to be making that argument. I noticed an exhibit was dropped off today. I think it was probably exhibit 1 from the applicant here. I haven't seen it. I called on Friday afternoon to see if the applicant had submitted anything else. There was nothing. So there are due process issues. So for that, I would encourage a no vote. And if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Thank you.
At this time, I will give the applicant the opportunity to answer questions presented to the chairperson, if there are any.
From us?
Anybody in the audience?
Yeah, I have a couple. The exhibit that was first dropped off this morning, what was that? When was it completed? When was it first given to the county, and has it been made available to the public?
The exhibit was given as a draft to the county as a conditional use permit. It was dropped off here and completed just a few minutes ago with another signature. Before the meeting.
So what signature had to be completed on it?
We just needed to add another signature from the manager for the operation.
Okay, did you get your DA signatures from the state, from the DENR
No,
yet?
it's the way the conditional use is, it has to get cleared by South Dakota DNR before we get anything from the county standpoint.
So why was that included in there if it's not complete?
That is the application, I take it,
To
that's
go
going to go
to the state, that's correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And they are providing us
A copy.
for our review, a copy of that.
That's correct.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask how they figured if they have proof that their manure is better than anything else out there. What people tell us is that it's, in our area, it's the first place to burn, and we can have guys that are in the hog business tell you that. I've seen the manure, what manure does. It's, I just wanna know what their proof is that it's better than the fertilizer that we're gonna get locally.
The question is the quality of the manure.
I can comment, and I mean, Brad is a farmer, he's a farmer, I'm a veterinarian, but Ed, good question. Of course, with all nutrients, synthetic or natural, this is natural fertilizer, you need to apply it at agronomic rates, properly applied. If you over apply, you're gonna burn the crop. But that's why we're regulated, I believe, by the DENR, and we need to measure the soil fertility, the nutrient uptake of the crop, and then apply under regulation by them the proper amount of nutrients. So, follow up.
Wait.
Brad,
Just good. I mean, you put the manure on and you're assuming normal rainfalls and all that. But we've seen it over years. We've been doing this for 12 years. Everything tests, and the yield monitors, you can see right to the row. We tissue test the corn where we do the manure. You don't have to have as many micronutrients, the magnesium, sulfur, all those added. So yes, we've seen the benefit of that. It has to be applied right, and I'm pretty proud of how precise we're doing it compared to the way we used to do our cow manure and our hog manure years ago. We just got rid of it. It's not that way anymore. The value is there of the manure, and it's applied right, and it's regulated very well.
Go ahead. Maybe let somebody else. Somebody's gonna hang out.
Gary Brown from Palmer Township. We heard mention of a $50,000 township budget here today. I think you know that Palmer Township's a fraction of that. There's drone pictures of the road leading up to where quite a chunk of these acres are. And that terrain is so rough, that section 1, we use in Palmer Township. The Seckless Farms, it should be out. Shouldn't be considered. Well, my question is, what's gonna happen with the road hall, Plummer Townships?
What will happen with the road hall in Plummer Township? Yeah, I think possibly your question is if they were transporting manure.
That section 1 is.
During that time, would there be a haul road agreement during that time?
Yeah, okay.
Would that, is that?
That's good enough.
yeah, and we do sign road haul agreements, we do abide by, and I think if you talk to many townships, they'd say, yeah, we do a nice job. So that would be a nice.
I'm sorry. The information that we get from the locals, and if you really want to know about these operations, you need to talk to the people that live there. They said they don't keep their promises at all, period. They're bad neighbors. That's what they tell us. Now, I don't know, I don't live there.
Is this a question?
It is a question. I guess I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
I got a question.
I can respond.
Okay, he understood the question.
I understand. It kind of goes back to the whole land value discussion. Like, if you want to investigate and convince yourself by one side that you're going to decrease the land, you can do that. If you look to the positive folks, you can understand that they would view it as a positive impact on land. Same with the neighbors. When you Google jackrabbit, I'll just tell you, there's 3 neighbors in there that hated our guts before we got there. They hate our guts today. We've done nice things for them. They never say thank you, and they still say they hate our guts. And that's why you need to go and survey more people and more people that operate the way you folks do, and see the positive side of this. And I think you'll view it different. And so always, and this is what I learned when I was young, you hear one story, take a chance to hear the other story, because you should never make judgments on one story.
Thank you. Brian?
My question is to Marty on the manure management part of that. That section 1, I mean, they're really, what's your plan with almost 75% of these acres being native prairie land that is very rocky, and section 1 is not. There should have been a drone photos submitted. You really should see the terrain. This is you would, if you looked at that, you'd say there's no way. And I don't know how you couldn't say the same, Marty, by looking at section 1, which encompasses almost 1/3 of your guys' plan of manure management. Long ways away, very rough. What is the idea on that portion?
Do you understand?
Yep. I would say the cropland in section 1 has been taken out, the setbacks from the roads, from the streams. I'd have to review section 1, I didn't look at before today's meeting. But the plan would be to incorporate, if it's a rocky field, we'd have to look at other options. I mean, I'd have to look at, see where those fields are, where the
But-
grass is.
With all due respect, Marty, that's a third of your guys' acres, Commissioner.
I don't know if all those acres are in the plan or not. I have to
According
see
to,
the actual-
from the, we're just going off the zoning.
From the map looks like the whole thing is in there. When it gets to the engineer, they're taking out, the non-cropped acres are taken out, or the non-application acres are taken out. So without reviewing that, I can't answer.
I have one question. There's been some discussion of rural water versus water supply at the site. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I can explain that, because I was the engineer. We typically add that to use rural water as a backup for such things as offices, et cetera. I have since pulled that out in the application, all it says is well water.
Oh,
So
so what?
it's well water, yeah, we pulled that out.
We realize that we cannot get rural water there.
Okay.
Has there been any information on if you put your 2 wells in, what you're gonna do to the rest of the wells around? The landowners use, are any gonna be capped off, or do you
Let's
stay open, or?
That will be addressed we have to get a water permit also from South Dakota DNR, and it has to meet the requirement. So in our application, and that's after we do our test well, South Dakota DNR will make that assessment if we're gonna damage anything else on that. And give us
Mr. Chairman.
Yes?
Are you guys gonna do a 24-hour pump test on them? Over in Minnesota and Iowa, they require that you do a 24-hour continual pumping on them to make sure that they never run dry, that if they ever do, they are capped off and are deemed worthless and have to re-drill. Are you guys gonna do any of that to make sure that you will have suffice water of 28 gallons per minute to suffice your 40,000 gallons a day usage out of one well that you requested at the zoning meeting? Or are you gonna end up using both wells to meet that?
Did you hear the
Yes.
question?
Yep.
So I don't have
So,
to repeat it?
no. So, we have to apply for a water rights permit with the Water Rights Department of the state of South Dakota. They will study that aquifer. They will determine if a pump test needs to be done. If it needs to be done, then we do it. We had a site that we just did that on last summer. If they feel in their office and their hydrologists and if they feel it's necessary, they'll make us do it. If they don't, they'll approve the water rights.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more question.
So,
Yeah,
How do,
there's a follow-up.
well, no, he didn't answer. Are you gonna use the one well that you said to supply your 40,000
Yep.
in the zoning?
So-
Or are you gonna end up using both?
Yep, so when we apply for a water rights permit, we apply for that out of an aquifer. And when we apply for it, it'll be with 2 wells, with 1 well, we have to decide that, but usually it's 2 wells, and it's from 1 aquifer. So it's one water rights permit for that facility.
So you could potentially run 2 wells at one time.
So that'll change then from the zoning meeting, that's all I'm trying to ask. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, do they actually have the required number of acres to put on the required number of gallons? And how do they plan to get the manure to section 1?
Do you actually have the acres?
According to the nutrient management plan we do, I have verbal commitment from another neighbor to sign up 300 more acres of cropland. That I'm just waiting for the
Not
scan and
written, not written, right.
it's an email as of today.
And also just comment, the state permit application won't be approved if the state determines there's not enough adequate acres for the nutrient management plan. So really, they regulate that. Some of the numbers you heard earlier that were being quoted here, I think there's confusion on the nutrient density of that material. this, because it is a sow farm, guys, the fluid is less nutrient dense, more water, less nutrients. So the gallon values you were hearing in that dissertation earlier was for finishing barn manure, which is twice as concentrated.
Thank you.
Is Dad's question, is it been answered though?
Not how they're gonna get it to section 1.
Section 1 is,
Is rough. They got 100 plus 170 acres that's farm ground, the rest of it is deer country.
This is the
Yeah,
top.
walk-
it's right up here.
Yeah, it's the top. It's right here.
Without planning the road, I would say, through road ditches, culverts, when we place culverts, we've done that at other sites. If we need to get across the road with the township's approval, of course, at our expense, not asking any extra burden for townships.
If you do not have township approval, are you saying that you would transport?
If that's how the township feels, if they would rather have tankers up and down the roads and they won't approve hoses, which is more safe, more efficient, then that's what we would have to do.
This is Bonnie Will, I have land in Palmer Township. And it kind of sounds to me here like kind of got the cart before the horse. They don't have all their ducks in a row. They got a lot of planning to do ahead of this. And they don't know exactly they've got a lot of,
What, the question?
how long is this gonna take, for God's sakes? That's a long time that they gotta work out all the details. You don't have many details, the way it sounds to me.
I could try and respond. Not fully aware of the entire question, but certainly a lot for us to learn working with the local landowner and some of the other folks in the community to understand the land. But really, I don't know the exact question, but process, first identify the site, and do a tremendous amount of work to try and have the engineer determine if the site's compatible with building this facility, and do the work to get the acres signed up for the nutrient management plan, put together a complete application for your state, then come to this meeting and encourage you guys to support the rules that we applied under. If approved, then the building process probably starts spring of next year. It's an 8-month process, and no pigs out of the farm for at least like a year and a half. And I don't know if that answers the question, but tremendous amount of detail. That's why I have an engineer here who has to put together that plan. It's very complicated. We have a guy who works with our nutrients. We have people that work with design. It is complicated, guys. That's why we've got a pretty stout team to try and put this together.
I have a question. All
Your-
of that I'm
your
hearing,
name?
my name's Anita Harmon.
Anita Harmon?
Yep, I live in Kimball. I grew up in rural county. I've worked on issues like this before, and it sounds an awful lot like stuff I've all heard before 20 years ago. My question, I guess, is this. If this is such a great deal, and it brings such great economic prosperity to these communities, why don't you stay in Minnesota and Iowa? Why are you coming to South Dakota?
I think a fantastic question. And the farmers that will own the livestock of this farm, if they could have those animals all in their own place, they would. But again, because agriculture changes and they learn the benefits and the importance of health, everybody, the reason why they want to go find the secluded spot on the Kuroka property, or any of yours if that mattered, if somebody wanted to do this, but is to get the animals that will make all the replacement animals, so like the replacement calves, make them in a spot where health can be preserved, bring them back to their sow farms, and then these farmers that own this, and they are farmers that own the livestock here, they will bring the pigs, and they do feed them on their yards. But you gotta separate the sows, or the mama cows, from the feedlot yards, same way as we operate in other places with cattle. And so that's why we're here. I just say, I've talked to some of the opponents, good level conversations, good people, and that's what I said to them. There's good people on both sides of this. Nobody wants to bring harm to anybody. But we're asking to come into the community here. We think we meet the rules. We'll be good characters, good citizens, and we'll respect those against. I respect your opinions and your perspective. But in the end, if we block out everything, there's gonna be limited progress. And not just in pigs, cattle, agriculture, building, tape, whatever we do to all get along.
Kurt, question I have is on the soil sampling. Do you guys pull your own samples, or does the state come out and go to all of these pieces of land that you're actually putting the manure on and pull those soil samples? Do you pull them and then forward that soil on? Because I think when I read through the DENR, you actually pull it, but then you send it to them. So they're not actually they're monitoring the individual cores being pulled.
We hired a third-party crop consultant company to do that.
You hired them?
We hired a local, a central crop consulting. I don't know how local they are, but Central Crop Consulting goes into South Dakota. I don't know where they're based out, I think out of Marshall, Minnesota. People that live and work in South Dakota.
May I?
Ask if they have a second site in mind. This one.
Do you have a second site in mind?
We do not.
I understood that they did when I talked to Barry.
No, he knows me. Yeah, Ed, great conversation. I appreciate your time. No, we did talk about a second site. I further did investigate that. Was hoping to meet with you and maybe a local person to review, because I know you had some attributes of it you thought were good. But in discussion with other landowners, and that site would have created some hurdles that I don't think we could overcome. So when we discussed it, I thought we may have had an option, but after further review, we don't.
Michael Ritchie, Plummer Township. I know there's a lot of big numbers being thrown around here today. My question would be, how many residents and/or non-resident landowners of Plummer Township do you see benefiting from this?
How many residents do you see benefit?
That's a great question. I don't know all the residents. What I would say for all you folks, I don't know the number. Currently a smaller number of residents, but I would say the nutrients, and Greg Crope and I talked about this in the initial part, and Greg made a point of saying, he said, Barry, I want this to be good for the whole community, not just me. And I believe we reached out to local landowners and offered nutrients to them. And I believe that. I know Marty has. I know we had some landowners signed up with nutrient management plan. Since then, pulled out for reasons I don't understand. So it was offered to local, to this fellow's point, but I don't know the exact number of locals. What I would say is everybody in this county indirectly will benefit. Everybody will indirectly benefit. And when you have things like this come to communities, there are no silver bullets. There's no save the grace deal. Communities that thrive have small pieces that come in, and pretty soon they look back over 30 years and say, our great leaders have brought small things. We got a nice community today. The communities that are dying are the ones that say, no, no, no. So I can't answer how many directly. I'd like to include everyone if they want to, though. After this meeting with reasonable presentation, anybody who wants to participate in the nutrient management plan is welcome to.
Rich, one more question and I'll shut up. How many of their sites have been built with local contractors and local lumber suppliers and or electricians, water, whatever? How many local?
Great question. Great question, Ian. I can't say specifically. If I had to range it though, on the opportunity for the initial construction local, I'd say it's 10 to 25%. And the reason is the local infrastructure can't support the timeline it takes to do these things. But the excise tax on this one project be $450,000, one-time shot into the state's army. Now, we already talked about, I wish that money went to the Plummer Township. Unfortunately, we gotta do some legislative work, get more money local out of that money. But then think of this, 24/7, 365 for 40 years, that farm's gonna have 40 jobs up there. They're gonna pump in $1.2, $1.3 million. What those people get paid, they spend into the communities.
20 jobs.
19 or 20, whatever on the sheet.
You said 40.
Yeah, 40. That's why we give you the sheet. Whatever's on the sheet's right, whatever I say could be off by 10%. I know there was concern to local value, indirect value, about the feed, where it's gonna come from. I tell you, we don't know where it's gonna come from today. We're like a year from having to decide that. But whether it comes from a local feed mill or a feed mill 40 miles away, it changes basis in South Dakota. It changes basis. And if it moves by 1 penny, every single farmer who sells a bushel of corn gains value by 1 penny. Everybody shares that. The soybean meal is the same. Feeding it here, and I think somebody said this, feeding it here is way better than shipping it to Texas.
Mr. Chairman, on question, you say it'll raise our basis when the nearest feed mill from your proposed location is 60 miles or 80 miles that can contain your amount of feed. And how do you see us locally hauling 60 to 80 miles, paying for that 1 cent of possible better payment affecting anyone in Brewer County when they're 60 to 80 miles away?
It's still, guys, local use. It's gonna pull corn, right? The corn they use, they tend to pull corn this way, right? It's all about a fight for corn. The further you are from a delivery point, the worse your basis. So as you pull corn one way, they improve basis the other way. So you're not gonna get the penny by hauling it, you're gonna get it by indirectly. The 150,000 bushels they use is an opportunity where whoever's closer to you can't get that corn, so they need to bid a penny higher.
And I personally called them, and they said $200,000 to both of them don't mean a squat. It wouldn't change their basis now, so.
Okay. One last question.
We had this talk at 24/7, 365, 40 years. Okay, what's their supporting documents say that it's gonna do one of the top 4 sensitive areas in Brewer County over a 40-year period?
The question is, you're speaking regarding the watershed.
Yes, long-term effect.
The long-term effects that you feel after 40 years would be experienced by that watershed and the application of manure.
A fair question, not the grounds, but from streams, waterways, etc., we have setbacks. You apply synthetic fertilizer, you get to drive through them. And so we're higher regulated than them. Our impact will be lower than traditional farming using synthetic fertilizers. And if you get an agronomist out here or farmers honest how they apply, they'll shake their head, that's right. We have to abide by the rules because we're a CAFO. If you're not a CAFO, you don't have to abide by the rules. If you apply synthetic fertilizer, you're less restricted than we are. We will have less effect.
Okay, at this time, we are going to close the public portion of the hearing.
Oh, you don't have
What's that?
This is still a public meeting. We just can't.
Yeah, this is still talking. It's just that you're done questioning.
He means the comment section.
You just
The next procedure would be to make a decision. The decision would be to recommend granting of the conditional use, recommend granting the conditional use with conditions, or a recommendation of denial. As has been indicated under the conditional use, there are A through H of signs that are to be considered regarding the siting of the project. The last one, quite possibly, general compatibility with adjacent properties, will granting adversely affect public interest. We've been given a lot of information. We were accused or pointed out to that the planning and zoning did not review some information before making a decision. What you want? While you're thinking, I've got, as a Board of Adjustment, I've got a couple of questions. What do you use anything special as far as odor mitigation at your facilities?
Yeah, we use a pit additive to help mitigate odor, lessen odor, suspend solids, and preserve nutrients.
My next question's gonna be is the tree buffer around the buildings. Now, my understanding is, everything I read is, you're looking at 20 years before that is something that's there. My understanding is you start with small trees on the outside, next row of trees is higher, next row of trees is higher. The theory behind that is the wind comes in, it shoves it upwards and dissipates the smell out into the atmosphere theoretically. Whether that's how it works or not, I don't know. Chimneys, what is your opinion on chimneys?
Chimney ventilation on this facility wouldn't be possible because of the type of ventilation system. And so forcing it out the chimney wouldn't be compatible with what we're going to do with the ventilation.
What is the ventilation system?
What makes this facility different than other facilities?
On this facility, all the incoming, and not to confuse people, all the incoming air going into this facility will be filtered. So they'll all have to go through HEPA filter to filter the air from the animals to prevent any disease risk. And so when you do that, with the chimney ventilation system, you can't properly seal it or control the downdraft of the air with the chimney. So the ventilation system is a little more complicated than the chimney would have.
Next question, biofilters.
Yeah, biofilters, we've applied them to 2 farms. The farms that folks refer to as jackrabbit, those are not biofilters. We weren't required to put biofilters in the farm, that's just a dust catcher. But the biofilters we do have on 2 farms, one in Newton County, one in Grant County. I think we work with Southwest State and their engineers. I think there is some value to that. What I would say is it's not a perfect odor mitigation solution either, but I think there's some value to the biofilters. For the facilities, the challenges with them is just more maintenance, harder on the building to keep the dust closer to the building. But biofilters, I believe, contribute some value.
Oil sprinkling.
Oil sprinkling. Don't understand what that is. Oh, for dust control?
Yes.
Yes. We will work with neighbors on the main paths of the roads to the sites on dust control.
That is not my understanding, is oil sprinkling would be inside the
Yes.
facility.
Oh, in the
building.
facility? No, generally would not do that, haven't ever done that. Technique I've not heard of, to be honest.
I've heard as an engineer, I've heard of it, yeah. Not used. There's been a lot of research, you don't see it used that often, I think it's somewhat suspect. How well it works based on the cost, and the other headaches that go on.
One of the things that will help with this site with odor is proximity to neighbors. And I know for these folks, it's a low density area, but 1.77 miles, at least that's what, Dan, your measurement was. Is that what?
That's correct.
That's correct, 1.77 miles to the closest neighbor, and that's straight south. Generally, you don't get straight north prevailing winds. But topography of ground, rolling hills, right, breaks up the odors, disseminates the air. And so the topography of this site also, I believe, is favorable to odor dissemination.
It sits up on top of the hill, it actually gets, I can answer a little bit to what Barry said. You actually get more dilution because things are up in the air. Typically, odor comes down, it's usually your valleys, in low humidity, low wind, that's when most odor comes, not when it's windy. Because there's a tendency to dilute.
Just a comment I have about, the being conducive to the local land use, which, farming certainly. For the pheasant hunting, I understand the concern from the lodges. I personally have 4 friends that rent space from both or 2 of the lodges, and significant space from a couple. And of course, they're not concerned because they understand agriculture, but I can understand with Brian's operation, if you bring folks in from New York or England or wherever, there could be. But also earlier, I said, any reasonable request to be more conducive with the land operations, we will try and adhere to. Example, the nutrients. The pheasant hunting is generally in the fall, other than I believe somebody had a reserve where they hunted in March or something. But we wouldn't be applying manure in March. But for the pheasant properties, if they'll work with Marty, and if they say, listen, we hunt these properties, when you Pipestone try and not apply manure within 1 mile of our properties during this window of time, from October 1 to January 1, we would certainly work with them. I don't want to disrupt their business. I would like to have more to the fellow back here who's wondering how many Plummer Township folks are going to benefit. This will bring competitive advantage to the folks that get the nutrients from this property. I don't want it to be just a Gropa family. I got no issues with Greg. I'd like to share it with more people. And so working with those local folks and trying to manage through their hunting schedule, we are 100% open to as long as it's reasonable. And I think they're reasonable people on the other side. I visited with them offline to hear their concerns, a few of them, and they gave me solid concern. But our point would be, you guys, we will work with you. You can benefit from this too. If you want setbacks from your hunting properties, and if we can work with you, we're going to do that. We're not just going to call up next to you and apply manure the day the hunters are coming. So we're open. We want to work with these folks. We should all be able to work together and have this be a benefit for the cities in this community, the local people, the people who sell insurance, have housing, and the farmers who are going to have the nutrients on their property. And certainly we can do that without harming the pheasant hunters. Just cooperation.
Did you want to say something?
I do, if you don't mind. I just have a couple things. One is just to clarify.
Just a second. Brian McGinnis is with District 3.
I'm with Planning District 3 out of Yankton. I assist the county and drafted the zoning ordinances for them. A couple things, Mr. Chairman. One is, backing up is earlier, this is the decision-making body, so what the decision is, this is it. I mean, earlier there was something about recommendation. Oh, this will be the decision. Anything from this point forward would then, if you don't like it, it will go on to court. That's what will happen here, anything from here. The second thing is, I had a couple questions, and I've missed some of the process, and I apologize, I didn't make it to the Planning Commission. Did we see, and listened to all the questions, have you seen anything from Dr. Aaron Cordes as far as the odor footprint model? Has that been presented at all? Or has anything, Dr. Nicolai, on tree placement?
We have not presented that to the county. It was not requested, but we can easily do that if that's requested.
It's certainly something there's a modeling tool out there that shows the impact of considering wind and wind roses as far as prevailing winds and how it carries the wind and the impact upon neighboring properties, and has a factoring system as far as how far it goes, and in a plume versus more of circumference, it's a good way to get a better judge. Is it perfect? No, but it's better than just a standard setback analyst. I mean, that's something to certainly look at for a better informed decision.
Cordes now works for English, so.
She'll still do it.
Yeah, she'll do it, but it used to be, Steve Poe used to do a lot of it, so.
Have you had that done on this facility?
No, we have not done, but we can do it, it's a model we can easily have.
And then as far as trees, and you're correct, Rich, as far as some of that, there's also been some studies now, both on curtain barns and non-curtain barns with Dr. Nicolai at SDSU regarding trees and heights and distance, and I can't remember the exact findings. Generally at 500 meters is where trees should be for the maximum placement to break it up. And without quoting, I'd have to revisit that, but at a certain point, basically the tree placement becomes worthless and becomes more of a screening than anything. But if it's done correctly, they're very good, but they need to be done exactly at the correct height, which is high, taller the better. And the ASCS trees, which I've seen done many times over the years, are worthless. So, I mean, that's certainly something to consider, because as you're correct, that's 20 years. And at that point, who knows what's going to happen in 20 years. The other thing is, we mentioned you're looking at the A through H as far as the conditional use process, but please don't forget that we also have all the performance standards we need to look at probably first within the ag section. It's at 521, specific to animal feeding operations to review. And I would say at this point, because some of it's setbacks and things like that in the state permit, which we don't address technically right now, but number 4 and number 8 are certainly critical. And some of that, there's been a lot of questions about manure application. And the other thing I say is this is the one shot, and I always remind people that if it's not written down, it doesn't apply. And I've had many counties talk about a lot of stuff, but if it's not written down, the state's attorney, nor I, nor anyone can enforce it. So as we go through, if there's something you think is very critical, let's make sure you get it in your motion as a condition and it gets recorded. Otherwise, in 2 years, we have a hard time enforcing that. So, but those are the things I'd certainly, hurdles I've seen hit as we go through. And if you have any questions, you can certainly take those as you go through. If you,
Chairman. A lot of this has been mentioned, nothing about schools. They bring in migratory workers, they go to our schools, and now that county or that area has to do some teachers and stuff because they can't speak English. Where is all that money coming from? If
you break it up and just say White Lake, Kimball, and Chamberlain, you're already looking at 3 areas. You have to hire teachers to speak the language both ways. So you're looking at another, more money coming from somewhere else. Where is something like that coming from? The general taxes?
I've got one question.
Okay.
Do you have from any specific cited case
No, I'm just-
where this has occurred and it's been a problem for its school system? Do you have any
One area?
any evidence of this, or is it projection?
It's just a projecture, but at the same time, when they move the chicken things into Sticky, you heard about it. Or, yeah, Sticky over there, you know, that. Or Plankington, I'm sorry. When they move them in, that, okay, all these migratory workers come in with their children, just one of them thoughts that goes with it.
Yes, that's taken into.
Okay.
Can't be considered an issue. Think how the biggest bullying is.
Well, at this time, when I look at this, with the volume of information that we have to review and to give justice to, whether it's the opponent's side or the opponent's side, I'd make a motion that we table this to a future commission meeting to reconvene with the Board of Adjustment and make a decision on it at that time.
I'll second that. Now, as discussion on that, when we reconvene, will that require public notifications?
In my opinion, you will have to republish the same
Once-
way as the original.
Once each of us has had a chance to review this, I would also should put in the motion that they secure the, whatever that wind, what the footprint would be with the dispersion to be presented at that time.
Order what?
Footprint.
And tree what?
What's
The
that?
trees, what's about the trees? Is the tree one of them? Or no?
No.
Be presented as well.
So, any further discussion on that? Do you have any idea when that footprint
Need a date.
modeling would be available?
It's something that we do personally. If you want us, if you want a secondary outfit to do it, that'd be a different time. Us, we have it in a week. Someone else. It's.
I would guess that it would probably be best if it were independent.
That's. I mean, I get South Dakota to get your land grant institution to do it, South Dakota State. That'd probably be my recommendation.
That would be good. So then you will notify us when you have that?
Yes.
And then we will do the public notices regarding the final permit. Okay? All in favor of that? Aye. Opposed?
Somebody want the 10-day notice.
Hearing is tabled until such notice.